My name is Brad Nein, and I'm Tormenta Strong.
And my name's Tom Melville, and I'm Tormenta Strong.
I'm here with Tom today. Super excited about this opportunity to speak to him and to get his wisdom out to everybody. His experiences are amazing. Every time I talk to him, he tells me a new story, and it's just ones that I want to get out and spread the joy of soccer and the joy that he's seen through his eyes and what he's done throughout his life, working with kids, college-age players and professional players, and teaching them not only soccer skills but life skills. And we were lucky enough to bring Tom in this year to, and I'll let Tom talk about what he's done this past year. But it's been a fantastic season when Tom was on the field working with his boys and girls in the Savannah Academy. And Tom, can you tell us a little bit about what you did this year for Tormenta?
Yeah, I mean it's been a fun year until this hit, the pandemic. No one saw that one coming.
Yeah.
But it was nice to step in. I'd been taking a little bit of time off for college, after college, and then had a little bit of years experience with U11 and U12 down, and then stepped in with Tormenta, and it's just a nice change where you're not dealing with a ton of 18 to 22-year-old egos, testy that way. Instead, you're dealing with they're like little puppies. In fact, it just reminds me, I just got a puppy with this pandemic, and we've been starting all over again, and it's just like training a puppy dog.
Oh, I love it, man. And it's getting those kids, and one of the things when I go out to your sessions and watch, I see so much growth just happen from the beginning of the session to the end of the session. Whether it's working on some type of partner passing activity where they're doing takeovers or give and goes or overlaps or something along that, or learning how to take the ball out of the air. And it's to me, it's just been watching kids not only through the whole season that we had, but watching them just from practice to practice and take in the information and grow personally has been fun to see. Now at the 11 and 12-year-old age, I think that happens often. Would that happen with older kids too? From your experiences?
I think with the younger ones, again, it's like introducing a new thing. They suddenly, it's like the light bulb goes off. With the older kids or older players, it's a little bit more over a longer period of time. That's what's nice about it to me. With a young player, a really young player, you can show them whether it's just a simple technical move or whether it's something involving more than one player. Like the overlaps, like they get a big kick out of because they've learned how to overlap.
Right.
And you hear them overlap, and they're just the enthusiasm, but they realize that, hey, I can do this. And passing is not an aspect that comes easy to them because it's about me and the ball when they're that young. The technical side. So that's that transition that they're going through now, 11, 12, 13, because the game is it's an 80-90% passing game. So the one thing I have noticed that the technical base has been great to come in and see such a good solid base, and way more than average for the age. So it's been easy for me to say, okay, let's put a little twist on this and start to open their eyes as far as the game is concerned, not just the individual.
And I've loved it the entire season, watching it, and I think you've brought in about 4 coaches in the Savannah area that have looked to you as a mentor. So that's been fun to me to watch, and I know you enjoy that as well.
I mean, you can almost pick something up. I mean, it's interesting again because it's a different generation. They have a different experience than I do. So I can pick one little thing about how to present something because it's really you're presenting the same thing over and over and over again because it's repetition in a lot. And the key is, how do they not recognize that it's the same? Because that can get the boredom aspect of it.
For sure.
So just different players, different coaches, young coaches especially, and they bring their recent experience, which my experience of actually playing a long time ago.
Well, that takes me to your accent, which I love, Tom. I can tell you're not from Savannah or Effingham or Rincon or Hilton Head at this point.
New Jersey usually.
So, what I love hearing you talk about is, your experiences and stories and the people you've been around. And so, but I want to know where it all started for you, why you got into soccer, how you got into soccer, who you played for, where was this at, when did you come to America, and why. I want to know Tom's, book number 1, All About Tom. Here we go.
I'll try and give me
a little bit.
Give you the shortened version. Well, I'm aging myself, but I basically was a young kid of the 60s. And when I grew up, that period where soccer was really just starting to become televised, and for everybody. Back in the days, still black and white television. So, it was just.
What city did you live in?
I grew up just on the suburbs of Belfast.
Okay.
Northern Ireland.
Sure.
And I grew up in also the shadow of the Troubles, which kind of affected us, and what you could do, you couldn't do. But really just street soccer. We came home in the afternoon. I lived in a housing estate where semi-detached houses, lots of houses tight together. Maybe people owned a car. There weren't that many cars about.
Sure.
So we basically played between one gate, driveway, when I say driveway, not many people with cars. Well, from one person's entrance to their house to the other, because they were always facing each other. And luckily they were catty corner, they were diagonal. So we played on a diagonal. And it was, wasn't back then, it was, not many people had a ball. So it wasn't like nowadays where everybody, kids got 3 footballs, but whoever had the ball, that was your best friend, at least for the day.
Now, how old were you when you started doing that kind of thing?
I mean, I can just remember, 4, 5, 6, just being let out to play.
Mom says get out of the house. It's after school. You get all your buddies. Is it a 18-on-18 game or a 2-on-2 or what's that thing look like?
No, I mean mainly like 3v3, 4v4, 5v5, because the street was tight. It wasn't that much room, so you may have a game going on in front of your house, and then 100 yards up the street there was another little game going on.
Gotcha.
I was fortunate enough to grow up with, it was a family right opposite, 5 boys, 2 of which played professionally, one of which was on the national team. They were all staggered in age group, I was kind of in the middle. I was also fortunate enough to have, when they built the housing estate, at the back of my house, there was what was the rubble heap for the housing estate, all the stuff was dumped. Yeah, so it wasn't really a field, it was just, uneven ground, and, we'd play up there, especially when it rained, there's puddles and you could put a goal down and dive in the mud and stuff. And then we were also fortunate enough, my dad had purchased the house. The housing estate was new back in the 60s. And there was no house opposite our house. The house opposite was a policeman who had a big garden, because there was a main sewer line, a river that runned underground, so nobody could build in front. That's why my dad picked that house.
Sure.
We were good playing on the street, and then primary school. The coaches were a big influence. I remember vividly primary school. It was pretty competitive.
Now, how would you go to school, and would you practice after school, or would you have like a club team you'd play on, or would it be for the school, or how would something like that work?
There were 2 things back then, much like now. Primary school had a team, and you would train maybe once or twice a week, not a huge amount, because basically you were all playing in the street anyway.
You were training anyway, right? So when it was certain times of the year. And then you had local club teams that played just like everywhere in the league. But my first memories are from primary school, under 11. Sure.
And that was a big thing, when you get on the top team, because there was only one team. It was, and if you were good enough at 9 to make, the under 11 team, because it was the school team.
Sure.
Then that's how that worked.
And then you started playing on a more was it straight off 11v11? You're running on this.
Back then in school we played 11v11. I don't remember playing summer months. We could maybe play 5v5 tournaments. You know, like just go to play in a festival. You know. But I only remember playing 11v11. I don't remember playing official games for schools in anything shorter than 11v11.
Goals, I mean, that was the same thing for me. In my first season of soccer was in 1982 in Maryland, and it was 11v11 and I was 5 years old. You know, and all the way through, that's what it was. It just you know, nobody.
Which I think is the changes are good because you can see why, and maybe we'll talk about it later, but. You know, you can see why maybe the more technical, younger, lighter players, lighter built, would maybe get lost in the shuffle, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially on the club teams because when it was, you know, so competitive.
Yeah.
So, so that I think that's a good thing. That's a good change. I mean, and we didn't have subs.
Oh, wow. So did you have players sitting on the bench, but they couldn't come in?
You might have had one player. You know, you didn't have big squads. It wasn't 18. That was just totally foreign. Even when it come to the States, it was like, what, 18 players on squad?
Sure.
You know, because even at the young ages, if you subbed in, you were out. That was it. The game was over. You were done. So nobody wanted to be the 12th guy because you would either be a goalkeeper or stuck in goal,
right.
or you were praying for somebody to get hurt. And it was cold. That was a big thing. I remember it was freezing cold, so you didn't want to be sitting on the bench and driving rain and snow, and it wasn't fun.
Gosh. So that's so it was like a fall season. Did you also play in the spring too, or was it kind of
we played
another sport that you played in another season, or?
We played. You know, football was all, as I call it, football was all year long. You know, it was right through to May. It was followed the professional season. But we still played other sports, you know, like in school, you know, I got into running in a big way. And I think the people who had influence in my where I went and how my kind of story was the teachers.
Sure.
You know, I was a bit of a jack the lad in school, you know, getting into trouble. I had no interest in academics at 10, 11. And thankfully, when I went into secondary school at 11, 12 years old, it was a fairly new school with a good staff. You know, the headmaster was very strict, and it was a couple of teachers that recognised, you know, my interest in sport. And my math teacher was a big time cyclist. You know, my PE teacher was an Irish international rugby player.
Wow.
You know, various soccer. All the teachers played soccer. You know.
Sure.
So it was very much the teachers that I remember, you know, looking up to and going, you know, and having an interest, and especially as the time went on through the coaching side, you know, because when you realize at one point, wow, I'd love to be a professional player, but chances of making it, and then your parents also, and I was the first one in my family to go to college.
Wow.
So that was a big push, you know, to you know, that was a thing, you know.
Sure. So you're in secondary school. That's probably, what is that, like sixth grade? Is that kind of like middle school and high school combined for us?
The system over there goes to primary 7, and then you did a test called the 11 plus to decide whether you were going to go to on the academic side, which is called grammar school over there, or you were not smart enough or not that way inclined. And you go the secondary school route, which more the technical side, you know, to become an electrician or a plumber, which is, and again, I was lucky. That's the route I went because at 10, 11, I had no, you know,
sure.
I frustrated my parents that I didn't, you know, but luckily through secondary school and through these teachers that were involved in sport as well, recognized and kept pushing me, you know, and basically made me aware, look, you can do this, and you can go to college and do this, and you can become, you know, I realized, you know, you can be a PE teacher.
Sure.
You know, you can teach sport and get paid for it.
What a dream. I lived the same dream, so I'm right there.
Yeah, so that's kind of what happened, and luckily at that time I did geography and geology were the academics topics for A-level to get in at 16 to 18. And that's how I ended up in a sports college, University of Ulster.
So you go to the university at 16, kind of is what that looks like.
Well, you go in 16, you do your O levels, and then that decides, okay, you leave school at 16 technically.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Now,
Can,
were you still playing during these times?
Yeah.
Was soccer always something that was like something that always came through?
Every weekend. I mean, I remember cleaning, sitting in the morning, getting up early on Saturday morning before mom and dad, sitting in front of the fire. We always had a coal fire. It was cold.
Nice.
And it was on 365, 365 days a year.
Sure.
And getting your boots ready, polishing your boots, Your boots were a big thing because, you didn't get bought too many pairs. So you had to look after them. And I remember having a pair of George Best boots and Stevie Highway boots, and and sitting. I remember I still have the letter. Actually, I wrote a letter. You're a kid. You're 8, 9 years old.
You hear
wrote a letter to Sir Matt Busby at Manchester United. I'm saying, hey, I want to play for Manchester United. And I actually have a handwritten note from Sir Matt Busby.
No way.
Oh. Saying, unfortunately, I was never good enough. But, the letter was on red devil paper said, if you get to the level at 11 years old, if you're a regional, school player,
right,
and we'll send somebody to see you.
Oh, sweet.
And that's, just as a little boy at 9 years old, I used to tell my mom, I'm going to make my living with these here, my feet. Unbeknownst that I realized at that point, you actually don't make it with your feet, it's your head.
Absolutely. But man, if a Tormenta pro player sent that to a Tormenta Academy player, what a feeling off of that, that's, I can imagine.
The impression that you can make on a young, that probably set me on a path,
Oh, sure.
When I look back and think about it, even though someone I never met, but just the fact that, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to prove to people I can do it. Now, again, unfortunately, I didn't develop into a good enough player to make a living and go that direction. I was actually a better runner. I got into running seriously.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually running that got me into the college, because the college, to get into the university that I got into and the department that I got into, was you had to be top in your field. So we had the girls were all like world championship hockey players.
Wow.
They were
field hockey.
Yeah, they won. Actually, 3 of the girls that went to college with me won the world championships at Kuala Lumpur back in 83 maybe.
Wow.
One of them was a male hockey player that played in the Olympics in 94. 80. When was it?
84 in LA?
Yes, yeah. And he's now the head of sport.
Oh, wow.
Sports council. So
field hockey is so fun to watch, man. I coached a little bit in college, and when you see it at the Olympic level, like
fast.
It is, man, that ball is moving. Both sides, they can turn their stick so good. The ball's hit so hard. It's unreal.
Yeah, I have my brother's daughter. I have a niece that's just made the Irish team, non-Ireland team.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's young. So, and my wife played. That's how we met in college, because my wife played hockey.
Sure.
And that's how she got in through to the university.
So now you're in college. You studied to be a PE teacher.
Yeah, I did a sports science degree.
Okay.
And then you could do a postgraduate certificate to become a teacher. So you did a degree based in sport, and then the last 2 years you piggyback that with teaching experience if you wanted to go into the teaching side of things.
Sure.
So that's the academic route.
And do you start teaching when you graduate from there, or do you come over to this at that point?
No, I was in college and ended up in the States by accident. I was in college, and in the summer I was scuba diving. Coming back along the Antrim coast, where you see what's the big series? The Irish. It's filmed in Ireland. Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
That coastline.
Wow.
And I was with a buddy of mine. We just finished diving and we're heading back home, and a young kid just started to drive at 17.
Sure.
Tried to overtake some cars on a bend and hit us head on, and I ended up in the hospital. And I had damage in my neck and stuff, and the doctor said, hey, if you could go somewhere warm, and that was in May of my sophomore or maybe my freshman year, I think. And I had offers to come out of the States and do camps and stuff. So I called one of the guys up and that had offered me. I have a relative that's a FIFA instructor.
Sure.
And through him, and that's how I ended up coming to the States, to Charleston. I had 2 offers, one to go to LA, one to the beach in California, and one to go to Charleston.
Wow.
And end up in Charleston, South Carolina.
Wow.
82 or something like that.
Man, that's
And so did summer camps, and then after 2 or 3 years of doing summer camps, I'm like, wow. You know, I made a point of going around and talking to the ACC coaches.
sure.
You know, Duke and Carolina and NC
So
State.
would you go back to your school in Ireland?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You come back here for the summer to run camps.
Well, I mean, I actually was back there, back in June doing the UEFA.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I actually, my old professor from college is still coaching with the IFA.
Oh my
His name is
God.
Walter Blakely.
That's unreal.
I'll not tell you what age he is, but he's retired, but he still works for the IFA and is part of the panel that comes in for, you know, a couple of weeks during the summer and to do the professional licenses.
Oh,
And
he
stuff.
must have loved seeing you, man.
It was fun. The 2 of us in soccer kit. I was the oldest guy in the UEFA course, and he was the oldest instructor. So so that was fun, and he was a big part of, you know, again, my interest in teaching and so we've stayed in touch over the years. So we have, my wife used to babysit his kids, who are now, one of them is a big time physiology and in sport on the soccer side, like works for Arsenal and stuff.
Wow, that's awesome.
His son actually gave a presentation on the UEFA course.
Wow, that's incredible. So you're in Charleston running camps, like you know, just your
James Island.
run of the mill, show up 9 to 3 camps, or are we doing overnight camps or college camps? Is there college coaches there with you, or how
Yeah, they were all
do you
they
do?
were all predominantly college coaches. You know, I was young.
Well, there wasn't youth club coaches then. Nobody had a full-time job.
No, not really.
It was
No,
all college
no.
coaches, right?
There was the guy I stayed with was a guy called Jim Stepan, who was the assistant coach at the Citadel,
Oh,
and Bill Barfield was the head coach. And it was actually Jim who ran a little soccer camp on his own during the summer to help. You know,
sure.
he was newly married to feed himself,
Yeah.
and called Dolphin Soccer Camps on James Island, James Island Youth Soccer Association.
That's great.
So that was my first experience in Charleston. I didn't expect the heat. I had no idea. I arrived with a wool suit on, 3-piece suit. in June. So a little bit of a shock to the system, but I stayed with 3 families that summer, and 2 of them became 2 of my best, you know, couples, friends. They actually went on honeymoon with us. So to this day, one of them's passed away, but Rich and Bunny Lloyd out of Lloyd Sports. They didn't have a sports store back then, but they were one of the families that we became really good friends with, and they're the godparents of my kids.
Yeah, Rich is amazing. He's done so much for soccer down here in the Southeast, and his business is thriving at this point. So it's been fun to get to know him on my end too.
Well, Mark was his son, Mark, who's in his 40s now. Mark was 10. I remember him juggling and stuff.
You're probably driving him to camp.
Yeah, yeah, around the corner. Yeah, they still have the tournaments there. We've actually played at that field.
Yeah.
First coaching experience was at that field that the U11s played.
Oh, that field was there back then. That complex.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's still there. Hasn't changed already.
That had to be one of the first complexes in the Southeast, I would imagine. Football.
Yeah, it was certainly well organized. You know, then I remember playing. You know, soccer was new. I played on a team for Jim Stepan. I remember going to Seabrook Island to play in an exhibition tournament at the Polo Club.
Right.
And there was the field had a palm tree in the middle of it. Playing around the palm tree. So it shows you how long ago.
It as a wall, Tom. That's great, man. Holy.
Yeah. So and then I did camps at the Citadel, and of course that's how I met a bunch of college coaches.
Right.
Mark Burson, South Carolina, he would come in. And then I made a point. I said, I figured out I need to go and meet all these coaches, you know, in their own backyard.
Sure.
So I did a road trip. I bought my first car and did a road trip around the various coaches, colleges, and concentrated on, you know, just walked into their office, walked into Anson Dorrance office, walked into Duke's office, NC State, and just said, hey, my name's Tom Melville, this is my background, and looking for a job. And it paid off down the road.
Oh yeah, so does that work out? Do you get hired?
Yeah, I mean, I came back for, I think, 3 summers in a row. And then just after I graduated, I was working on teaching, and I was still coming over. And then I got in fact, I remember distinctly, it was the morning of the FA Cup. I got a letter in the mail, you know, a regular mail.
Sure.
From Anson.
that must have taken a while.
Yeah, from Anson Dorrance offering me a job as a graduate assistant. So I was.
Was that when he was coaching the men and the women at UNC?
He was coaching the men and the women's team and the women's national team. So he had three jobs.
Wow.
And you know, I was supposed to come and help with the men. That was the original deal, but with my fiance and I, Tanya, you know, I had to wait until she graduated a couple of years after me, and then we moved over with this job, and we got in, moved into our apartment, and the first meeting I came back home and was like, uh-oh, there's a change of plans, Tanya. and he basically, the first meeting was to tell me, look, we lost the women's national championship for the first time ever the past fall, 85,
right,
to George Mason. And he wanted to get it back, and she said, look, you know, if you help me with the team instead of the men, I want you to help me focus with the women. And of course, you know, it was a new sport for the women back then. I didn't really want to. That's not what I came to. But I wasn't winning the argument, and you know, he basically said, look, what do you want out of this?
Right.
And I said, I want to get a job like you on the men's side. So he made me a deal. He says, if you help me, and he says, I'll make you a deal. I promise you I'll get you a job.
Oh,
and he was true to his word. So
did you guys go on and win that national championship, or like what's going on? Because now at UNC you're coaching players on the national team as well. Like that's a high level.
I remember distinctly we had 5 of those players played in the first ever Women's World Cup in 1991 in China.
Wow.
4 of them on the women's national team for the US, and 1 of them for, I think it was Norway or Sweden. Berta Hegstad was one of the freshmen that played, you know.
Sure.
So, yeah, we went on to win. We played, I think, Mason in the semifinal, at Mason, and Colorado College in the final. Like, you know, it was all, the semifinal, final were all like Final Four type thing.
Yeah.
And actually I got to spend, I almost missed the final because I spent the night before with Jim Stepan, who was the original coach that had brought me to the States, and he was married with kids, and he lived in Fairfax, Virginia.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's unreal.
So full circle. Well, you know, so, you know, when I look back and, you know, maybe could have stayed on the women's side too, because that took off. Obviously, there are a lot more opportunities for Title IX.
Sure.
You know, April Heinrichs was the captain and the player of the season back then.
Wow.
And lots of, I mean, I could go through a list. There was a whole list of great female players.
Sure, and they're all, you know, there's a bunch of them high-level coaches now.
Marcia McDermott went on to become the president of the NCAA. Laurie Henry, Carla Overbeck, Carla Warden back then was a freshman.
Yeah.
And Tracy Bates went on to play at Clemson. April eventually, you know, player obviously became the national team coach as well.
No.
And I remember playing, I think it was one of the few goals scored against us all year was Robbie Stahl's wife, Michelle Akers.
Oh, wow. And she was down in like Central Florida or something.
She was at UCF. She scored, I think it was a corner on a header, if I remember really.
Oh, I'm sure. Every video I see from the World Cup, she's always winning everything in the air. I mean, it's...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously, Anson wasn't too pleased at the time, but, you know. But they dispatched of them on their way to the national championship. So, yeah. I mean, it was I didn't expect that route. It was a great year. my wife, because I was only, I don't know, 24 maybe, so the girls weren't that much younger than me. So my wife didn't speak to me for about 2 weeks. Delved into the idea that I'd be with all these girls all the whole time.
Great.
But it worked out.
So were you there for a year then?
Yeah, I mean, he was good to his word. We won the championship obviously that late fall, and by January I was interviewing for the College of Charleston job.
Oh wow, that's a quick jump.
Lundy, of course, was a good bit older than me at the time. He still is. But I remember, getting an interview. One of my other buddies, a local guy called Fred Norkey, he went on to coach at Queen's. He was a local coach, and he got interviewed. And I remember meeting him afterwards for a beer, and he was like, I was in there for quite a few hours all day, and he had only been in there for like an hour. He wasn't happy. But looking back, I was young. I didn't have the experience that Ralph had at the time. But that's the job I wanted, because I had met Robbie Stahl,
right,
2 years previously, and I worked for him in a camp in Charleston. He had said to me, "Look, Tom, because he had been to Ireland and played in Ireland,
right?
So we had a bit of a connection there." And he said, "Look, I'm going to be leaving here soon, but if you get it set up right,
Yeah, just getting that opportunity to interview at your age is pretty amazing."
Yeah, so I ended up going to Lenore Ryan. I had a connection with Gary Hall, used to be the coach there, who was in camps with me again at the Citadel at that time.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? It seems like these connections have just been so good for you.
So Gary had started the program at Lenore Ryan 2 years prior to me taking over, and he moved on to, where did he go? Anyway, he took another job in North Carolina, but he had originally graduated at Wake Forest.
Oh, wow.
So Lenore Ryan took over there in the fall of '87, and it had a great 9-10 years there.
Now, just for a little background, are you teaching at the school as well? Like, are you just doing soccer stuff?
No, I mean, back then you probably had to, most coaches had to teach in the PE department. I taught outdoor activities, kayak and climbing, all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
They actually asked me, you have to maybe coach one other sport. And the only two we have available is either tennis or golf. And I said, well, golf takes way too long. I said, I'll do tennis. So I had the fittest tennis team, but my wife can beat me at tennis. So but it was only for 1 year. But I taught in the PE department for the entire time.
Yes. So you're at Lenore Ryan, and they're NAIA, or at that time?
They were NAIA back then. Of course, NAIA was a big thing.
Oh yeah.
And there were very strong NAIA teams back then. Back then, the NAIA top teams beat the NCAA. They used to have a tournament in the spring where the champions from the NAIA would play the champions from the NCAA, and stopped doing it probably because the NAIA teams were winning.
Yeah.
A lot of foreign players that were, let's say, back then they were professional. There were a few players that were.
Oh, sure. And they're probably a little bit older, maybe.
I remember I remember coaching against players that were older than me.
Right, and that's just wild on recruiting. I guess that helps with your connection to, Ireland and England and all that.
Well, that's what kind of brought to the table, because recruiting is the key. Recruiting, you could be a good coach and have no recruiting budget, and life could be tough.
Sure.
Or you could be an average coach and have a lot of money to recruit, or be a good recruiter and not very good on the field and still do very well. So recruiting's, 80% of college.
Oh, absolutely. And it sounds like you did a pretty good job of that. Did the teams go on and pretty successful?
Yeah, again, relative. Everything's relative. It's like Lenore Ryan had 2 scholarships when I got there.
Oh, wow.
In the old SAC 8.
You're playing against teams that have probably 11, right?
Some of them. I mean, back then, Kitsaba were the strong team in the NAI. I remember Kitsaba were the only team to beat Duke in '86.
Oh, wow.
Duke went to the national final.
Right.
And Kitsaba were a better team. So quickly learned that, hey, it's not just about how good a coach you're on the field. You've got to get the infrastructure right. And so, I remember going on a trip with my AD and asking him, hey, any chance you could get the president me to be his roommate. You know, you can throw him in with me. And my AD at the time did. So
wow.
after that trip to, I can remember, it was a conference somewhere with the colleges in that conference.
Sure.
And John Trainer was his name. And after that trip, I preferred him to take me from 2 scholarships to, I think, 4.5. So it worked.
More connections. It just keeps coming up. I love it.
So, you know, so that helped us. And we took them from, you know, being, you know, the regular team to we won. You know, we quickly turned it around in the late 80s, early 90s. They finally got their first conference championship in '92.
Sure.
But I mean, with some good times. I mean, we had started a club there from scratch. Still exists. The Catawba Valley Blast was the first club there. And brought some things in. I mean, I remember my team, the college team, played. You know, big thing was trying to get the D1 teams to come play you because we were an NAI team. Wednesday night, I remember, you know, because after I'd left Chapel Hill, Elmar Bulovic stayed. He was there on the men's side as an assistant, and he stayed on and became the men's coach.
Right.
So he and Anson actually twice came up and played Glenorian on a Wednesday night.
Oh, no way. Wow.
It was a big, you know, that was a huge game for
that's
Glenorian.
getting ACC schooling. I mean, that's amazing.
Now, you know, we get stuffed, but still, you know, those kids
that
got
experience. That experience is unreal.
So, you know, things like that. I remember Walt Chisowich was at Wake Forest, right, you know, right up the road, and he called me one day. He says, "Hey, we got Dynamo Kiev in here. Hey, you want to play them?" It's like, sure. so we had Dynamo Kiev come in and played Glenorian in the football stadium.
Oh my gosh, unreal. Did people show up and watch it? Was there a...
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, back then, you know, that's what's nice about being a smaller college too, that, you know, you were there's not a lot else going on.
You're the big fish.
And okay, it was still big football, it still is a big football school. But we had a good turnout. I mean, maybe 1,000 people back then.
Wow, that's awesome. That's some of these, you know, this is what I love about talking to you is these things that pop up that only are so unique to you, Tom, that, and you know, it's the storytelling part it's my favorite stuff, just hearing about soccer, you know, spread out. Been blessed, you know. I mean, I just couldn't be happier as far as, I wouldn't change anything. Oh, you know, it's been a fun ride. Amazing. And then you hop over to Mercer. Maybe, was that the mid-90s around then?
Yeah, 90, 95. I actually had a freshman of the year in 94 at Glenorian from I got kicked up, or maybe it was 93, 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a freshman that was freshman of the year from Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
I think Lovett, maybe school, I don't remember. But Buster Franklin was his name. Anyway, you know, typical freshman, you know, he did really well. And then obviously his girlfriend went to Mercer.
Of course, yeah.
And of course, then they started, you know, calling on him, and he came in and said, Coach, I want to transfer to Mercer. And I'm like, look, you know, this is the girlfriend talking. You know.
Sure.
I said, well, you know, eventually he wasn't winning that battle, and just wished him all the best. And
sure.
A couple of years later, he called me up and he said, hey, you know, I've just finished my senior year and the AD wants to talk to you.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so that's how Mercer came about, and I took over there in 95.
But now you're the D1 guy. I mean, this is awesome.
It was a nice, you know, big, you know, and again, you know, it's a different level for sure, you know, but still not that much difference in all other aspects, you know, it's just a kind of bigger version.
Oh, sure.
But more pressure, for sure. More pressure to win.
It was more, you know, we need to get results.
Well, and in some cases, I mean, we had an AD back at the time that, you know, again, it was, Mercer was a good scenario in terms of didn't have football at the time.
Right.
So I was excited about that. You know, and Glenorian had a big football following from years, you know, from day one.
Sure.
But this is a D1 school. It doesn't have football to compete. Maybe I can get in with more of the resources. Basketball was the big thing, basketball and baseball.
Sure.
And then soccer became the most successful sport there.
Yeah.
And, you know, being a private school, kind of trying to show them, look, we can turn, you know, we can do some things with this school. Good academics. We've got engineering, which is, you know, again, it's nice to have one or two little feathers in your cap that you can push, the medical school side of things, good business school. So that was easy. Trying to get the right people fit that academic profile, maybe not so much, but it was good in terms of you weren't competing against that culture.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that have gone out of Savannah there for the programs you just talked about. I mean, that's why they end up going to Mercer, not because it's close to Savannah or anything like that, but these world-renowned programs kind of like right in your back door. It's
a good school. I mean, we were unfortunate with the pandemic. We were supposed to have we won the first conference tournament we did the double 99 and went on to the national championships. We hosted the first round.
Oh, wow.
That group was supposed to be our big get together 2 weekends ago.
Sure, I remember.
So it would have been 20 years.
Yeah.
So actually they all met in Zoom. I'm sitting right here talking to them all. And I mean, they're all, one of them's a rocket scientist. I mean, he designs all these robots. And Devin Maxey Billings is his name, up in Boston.
Sure.
And some of them a couple others are doctors, orthopedic surgeons, and I mean, everything. Some of them are still playing a little bit of soccer on the side, but they're all making a living in other things.
Yeah. So when you say you did the double, was that like a regular season, postseason championship?
Yeah, that was 99. When I got into Mercer, they were in the old pack.
Yeah.
Back then, 95 when I got into Mercer. And so back then, 96, College of Charleston was very good.
Sure.
Who else? University of UNC. Sorry, not UNC. Central Florida, sorry. UCF.
Yeah.
Campbell was pretty good. The big two really were probably College of Charleston and is it FAU or FIU? FIU.
Florida Atlantic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Florida, is it? No, they went to the final in 96. Yeah, I always get confused between Florida Atlantic and Florida International. Florida International.
Yeah.
International played, I think, Seton Hall in the final that year. So they were the conference tournament champions, and College of Charleston did well as well at that time. So it took again 1 or 2 years to kind of get Mercer, caught up to some, to be able to compete with those two.
Sure.
And I do remember the first time College of Charleston had been to the quarterfinals of the NCAA the fall prior, and we played them. I went up to Canada on one of those early trips with Mercer and recruited 4 Canadians, 2 Haitian Canadians, and 2 Greek Canadians out of Quebec, all out of Quebec, and they were good players. And one of the Haitian players was unbelievable. He actually scored we beat College of Charleston, I think 5-0 or 5-1 maybe.
Wow.
Which shocked everybody.
Sure.
And Patrick Horatius was this kid's name, and he scored a hat trick. And I remember when we played NC State, the old coach, the Argentinian coach at the time at NC State, comes over and he's like, "Where did you get this player?" So we got the program up and on its feet, and they won in '99. They did the double. Then 2000 we won the regular season, and then 2002 we won the conference tournament again. I went to 2001 we went to the national championships for the second time, and I remember that year because that was 9/11.
Oh yeah. Well, I was gonna say, what a run by those. It must have been a sophomore, junior, senior laden group that could just flat out play.
Well, it was a group that was heavily. When I first moved to Georgia from North Carolina, in North Carolina I had been involved with the ODP, and then when I moved to Georgia, they asked me to take the 82 boys born in 1982.
That's a good year for Georgia.
That was a very good group, and the year above that too. In fact, we had one of them was playing up. Ricardo Clark was in that group with me.
Love it.
And so I had him playing up a year. He was in '83, so he was young. But
I don't know if people know who Ricardo Clark is. Can you fill everybody in there a little bit, Tom?
well, he's from a little Atlanta boy. He went on to play. Where he played Furman in college, didn't he? For
Furman, yeah.
one or 2 years.
And Dempsey played together.
Yeah, but like Dempsey, yeah, and then he left, turned pro. I can't remember all the clubs he was at, but I know Houston was a big part of the MLS thing. I remember going to watch him playing in Frankfurt. He played in Germany.
2000. What was it? 2006 World Cup or 2010 World Cup?
Yeah, he played. I remember watching him here. I actually lived in Savannah, I think, at the time. Because I remember
maybe 2010.
2010, because I remember going up in the downtown to one of the bars, sports bars, and watching him play in an opening game against England. He was at
I remember that. Oh man, the 1-1 game.
He was at fault for one of the first goals. Yeah, he had a little bit of a wobble.
Yeah.
Ricardo was again a younger player. He played up for the first year or two with the '82 boys, and then dropped back into his age group, because he was just we wanted to bring him on.
Sure.
But that '82 age group actually were the first team, certainly the first American ODP team that got an invitation to play in the Premier League festival.
Oh wow!
So the Premier League would do a festival for all their teams in the summer in June, and I remember we got an invitation. So we had a good team. We were successful. And we got an invitation to come and play. They typically invite 6 teams as guests.
Sure.
So you have all the Premier League teams in one location, and they're playing a festival, not a tournament, because you try things like one game, for example, you got to play with 10 men for one half and 10 for the next half. So the topic for that night would be try to play a man down.
Right.
But the foreign teams were Bayer Leverkusen, Arsenal, Bayer Leverkusen, Celtic, Yokohama Mariners out of Japan, FC Jazz, and Ajax.
And the Georgia
ODP. And in fact, we got a call from the JCB people. They were just announced the building of the factory here in Savannah.
Yeah.
And this is when I was still in Mercer. This was a long time back. And they actually called me up. The directors called up and said, "Hey, could you come over here and do a photo op with your Georgia ODP at the factory, because it's based there?" And we were like, "Sure." So all the kids, got hard hats, and they put them on this big, nice piece of equipment, and they took pictures, and obviously they built the plant here.
Oh, that's incredible, Tom! Wow, that is. How'd you guys do over there? Did you take down Ajax and Arsenal? And
we didn't take anybody down, but we held our own. We had. In fact, it was a really. It was at that stage. It was a triple lifetime football.
Oh yeah.
Because actually that week was the first week. I'll tell you who was with us. Well, not with us, with our team, but there that week was Landon Donovan.
Oh,
he was on trial for his first week at Bayer Leverkusen.
Sure.
Bayer Leverkusen was one of the foreign teams, so he was there on. I know he'd been on trials before, but they brought him in for that week for that particular event.
Wow.
And so he was there with us, and we played against him.
The young blonde Landon in action, huh?
Yeah, we played the first game against Liverpool, and we were up 1-0 when a certain Steven Gerrard came on for 2 goals.
He got the stuff done. Yeah.
He beat us 2-1. Let me see who else we played. We played Aston Villa. We tied them 1-1. We played Bayer Leverkusen, and they beat us 2-0. And then we played Arsenal. We lost 1-0 literally in the last minute.
That is the trip of a lifetime, Tom. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was really, soccer was really starting to grow here. We were starting to get attention. A couple of boys got asked to stay on at different pro teams over there, for a trial.
Probably like 1999, huh? 1998, 99, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact year, but it was.
Sure.
So that, and that, I got about 5 of those players off the Georgia ODP team to come into Mercer.
Oh wow!
we had 2 of those players went on to play on the national team, the U17 national team, So it was a good, it's a good group of players. We traveled lots of different places. We played in Austria in a big tournament. We went into Hungary and played behind us before it was back when.
This is all the ODP stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's incredible.
So we had some great trips, great experience for the boys, I mean, that's what that generation became really, really well-established soccer players.
Well, that's where it changed, in the U.S., where it seemed like, we're just trying to hang on in the 90s. You get that in 94, you make the quarters or whatever, and you can't even get the ball off of Brazil. And then in the 2000s, at times, especially in, 2002, when we played Germany and looks like the ball goes in and ball doesn't go.
Handball on the
line. Those are all the players. That's that generation, right? That then go on and, really create the MLS as well, and what it is today and how it's continuously getting better as a league, getting more organized and having youth academies come out of it and that type of thing. I think that's just, been a huge level of growth for not only quantity but quality players. There's more better players in America than there ever has been, I think.
Well, I mean, looking at especially the youth. I mean, even though I've been a college player most of my life, but involved with the ODP stuff. I was lucky enough when I moved also to Georgia. The Olympics was in '96, and I moved there in '95. And Macon didn't get any of the events, unfortunately. So there was a doctor in town who was actually a Nigerian background.
Yeah.
He came to the States on a soccer scholarship, played in college, went on to play, and then he was almost retired OBGYN. So he had a big OBGYN practice in Middle Georgia. And his name was Obi Okedi. And Obi came to me in the office at Mercer and said, look, I'm the first African licensed FIFA agent.
Oh, really?
I want you to help me with the Olympics and bringing something in here to make it. So he was going to he actually was the medical doctor for Nigeria for the Olympics, and they won the gold.
Yeah, so that was like quite a generation they had there.
Mm-hmm. So he said, look, I'm going to put up the money if you'll help me organize and keep the cost down. Use the college, the dorms, etc. So we end up having Cameroon come and stay for 2 weeks. To prepare for the Olympics.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then we had a big group of German tourists that came in and met a guy who was a tourist operator.
Sure.
And they basically took over all of Macon. And so unfortunately Germany, I actually went to Germany with him to watch the playoff game against France.
Right.
And they didn't make it. Germany didn't make it, unfortunately.
They didn't make the Olympics that year?
No, they didn't. France beat them. Well, it was a tie and they won the tiebreaker or whatever. I can't remember exactly how, but Germany didn't get in.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Obi basically put the money up, and then he got a few players out of that deal. We ended up playing Birmingham. We had two games organised. One was against Birmingham Grasshoppers on a Friday night. Preston Coulthard was running that.
Yeah.
And then the other was the Ruckus, the Atlanta Ruckus.
Oh, yeah.
So we had games for Friday night and Sunday evening against Cameroon. So what happened was the right before these games, the Ruckus folded.
Right before the game?
Right before that week before the game. So they came in and played the Birmingham Grasshoppers on Friday night. We had a standing room only. Like 5,000 people came to the game.
Yeah.
They crushed them, it was like 6-0 or something. But then because of the collapse of the Ruckus game, I had to scramble around the last minute trying to get another game, and I got a team from Daytona. It was an English guy, Giles Malone, I think. There was another, one of the semi-pro teams at that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the guy, Dr. Okey had bought first-class tickets to fly them in because they were going to play a game on a Monday, in the league game.
Oh, wow.
So lucky enough, the only thing that saved it, we got a call on the Friday night after the first game from France, who were at Auburn.
Yeah.
and they said, "Hey, we want to play," because they were supposed to play Croatia, who hadn't qualified. But the bottom line is, they had another game that the team weren't officially the team, and they didn't get sanctioned at the last minute. So they came looking for a game, and they were two of the top.
So France played Cameroon in Macon.
France played Cameroon on the Sunday, 1-1 tie.
Oh my God! How many future stars are on that French team that everybody knows? I mean,
I still have the video
out there. Or?
I have the video. My two little boys were both, carrying the flags out, and so there was a lot of good players came from that group because they went on to win the World Cup.
Yeah. No, that's unreal, man. That is cool.
So soccer in Middle Georgia at that time was, and then so after that was such a success. Obi came back and said, "Look, I want to bring in next year. I want to do the under-17s." I'm like, "Well, who do you want to bring in?" So he said, "We want to bring in the best." So we had obviously USA, the host team.
Yeah. You had a year to plan for this now, though, so that you had that going.
So we had Brazil, USA, Nigeria, Mexico. Who the other teams were? But we had basically a two.
All U17s.
Oh yeah. All the Ronaldinho was the star player for Brazil.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I have a picture of a young Tom Melville standing beside him. He came actually and we had camp going on at the same time, so
he was in for that.
Him and Juninho came to do the camp session for me. Oh. And unfortunately we had a big thunderstorm hit. So we went into the gym, which was basically a church.
Sure.
Or like a badminton hall, basketball court.
Right.
So the two of them and the Brazil staff ran a session for about 80 kids in a space that was, it's a basketball court.
Sure.
And it was amazing. So.
Oh, I'm sure.
That was a big success. So again, 2 weeks. They ended up playing Ghana in the final. So they were getting ready to play in the '97 World Cup that was in Trinidad and Tobago that year.
Yeah. Were they? So all those games happened in Mercer at your park?
Yeah, we put it "Born in the USA" '97 was the logo. So we had them all staying at the college.
Right.
And then we had a game every other night. And sellout crowds. We had to use Stratford School because they had really nice facilities. So we used that facility.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of games in Atlanta because again Mexico was a big draw. So we had games in Atlanta.
Yeah, you can sell out something with them. I mean, that's unreal.
Yeah, the problem we had was some of the players like from Nigeria and from Mexico, they would basically go AWOL right after the games were over. Try and get asylum. We would end up with immigration calling us going, "Hey, we got these guys." They never left.
Oh wow, unreal.
So things like that would happen. But yeah, it was fun. Then I got friendly with the Brazilian staff, and then let me see. So '97 World Cup, then '99, 2000. I think '99 I went down to Brazil. They invited me down to work with their tournament. They'd seen what we had done, put on. They said, "We need to have this. This needs to be a regular event right before the Youth World Cup, like a prep."
Absolutely.
So they did it in Rio. So myself and Jacob Daniel.
Yeah.
Were invited down. They paid for everything, and we had 10 days in Rio. We had Brazil, Uruguay, Russia, Japan, Italy.
Was US down?
The star? No, US weren't in that group. They weren't there. I'm trying to think who the star players from Brazil were. That would have been Diego and Rubinho.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think Diego and Rubinho. Well, that would have been in the year after that. But anyway, there was a lot of great players. And what an experience from the coach, Every other day, so every other day they had 3 games. They rotated.
And you're on the field, like taking all this stuff in, like in both.
Well, my Jacob and my job was to do a technical report back to the federation. So we were analysing the game.
Oh my gosh, I mean, that's even more exciting for like an old coach like myself, right? Wow.
Well, I mean, every night we're staying with the Brazilian national team staff every minute of the day. You know,
Really unreal. Like
unreal.
You can gain from that. I mean, that is nuts.
So that, you know, I mean, and to me, I mean, you know, you have, everybody has their bucket list of things to do, and one of my things to do was to go to the Maracanã Stadium.
Yeah.
And so before the morning of the final, Brazil were playing Italy, and the final was at Vasco da Gama's facility.
Yeah.
And so the CBF, the director for the CBF, guy called Nilson Gonçalves, so he picked me up. He was kind of, you know, he was a guy who just, I shadowed him the whole time. So
Sure.
he picked me up and said, right, we're going to pick up the trophies. And then it was right in the shadow of the Maracanã.
Right,
and I said, oh, can we get in? He goes, you've never been? I said, no. So he took me in and gave me a personal tour. It was a pretty rough shape back then. You know, they did it up again after.
Cleaned up again, yeah.
But so, and then the World Club Championships was actually going on the weekend I arrived. You know, the
wow. So you got the best team in Europe coming in, and
yeah, Manchester United were in, and they'd just been knocked out. So they'd just been knocked out, and I arrived in the final was arrived in Vasco, and I went out and onto the grass, you know, and it's like watching this guy cutting the grass with a regular lawnmower. With like a 400-yard electric lead.
Oh my gosh.
The grass, you know, the grass was like this thick, and I'm like, now I know why. It was a different game, you know, because you couldn't pass the ball like European style.
Right,
because
right.
the grass was thick.
Yeah.
And they deliberately had it, you know, the Brazilians would want you to come get the ball off them.
Right.
Make it a one-on-one.
Yeah.
So I think I stayed on as well and watched. I wanted to see Romario and Edmundo were playing for Vasco.
Yeah.
And they were playing Corinthians in a friendly, like the night after our tournament ended. So I stayed to watch that and watch Romario play. And, you know, it was in his latter days. And it was a 3-3 tie, and they got booed off the pitch.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
He scored 2 and assisted 1, and I think he only touched the ball like 9 times.
Yeah, that's when he came back from Europe, I'm sure, right? That was, at the end, because he was such a hero in 90 and 94 for those guys. No, that's unbelievable. Those are all on my bucket list at some point too. It's what an opportunity.
Well, it's funny. I got to go again. We you know us that I like to travel and stuff, and that's been one of the spin-offs of being a coach, is traveling around the world. And
great part,
especially these last couple of years, even more so. But my wife and I went down, I think it was 2 spring breaks ago or 3 spring breaks ago. We jumped on a flight and went down to Rio. My wife hadn't been, even though I'd been a couple of times.
Sure.
And we just, you know, did hotels.com and on Ipanema Beach and walked in the hotel, and there was a ticket thing that says, you know, South American semi-final. Flamenco versus Colo Colo.
Oh my God.
So I said, do you want to go? She said, sure. So we end up, there was like nine other Polish guys in our hotel that we all went.
Oh
you
my gosh. Oh, that was great.
That was fun. And I mean, obviously, it had been a big change since I had been there to the stadium. That was, you know, after the World Cup that they hosted, so it was a fantastic change.
And the Olympics might have done something there too. Who knows?
Yeah. So it was really nice to see it. You know, back when I first saw it, it was a bit shabby looking.
Right.
Actually, there was a fruit and vegetable market inside of it when I was there.
Wow.
So interesting.
No, that is so great. But then that brings us to like the part where you come into Savannah, and you take over the SCAD men, maybe 2008 or 9.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, because I got here in 2007, and I met you right around sometime in there. And it's always been such a pleasure to chat with you. But so you do the NAIA, you go to the D1, then you're back on the NAIA a little bit with SCAD. What brought on that kind of move?
Well, it was purely selfish, really. I mean, I had 2 boys that played. and the oldest one was a junior at that time. The end of his junior year it was exactly this time of year. It was actually Mother's Day weekend when I entered. So that spring we had actually played them a friendly, because you normally don't play, D1 play any high schools. Knew the coach, and I was actually going in Argentina recruiting when we played in March or April or something like that. So when I got back, I asked how the game went, and my assistant coach said, "Well, John wasn't there. He just took a job in Florida." I said, "Oh." So I called him up and we're just wishing him all the best, and he was good. I said, "It's funny, my son just changed his mind about where he wants to go to college. He was going to do engineering at Mercer."
Oh, perfect.
Well, as you can probably see behind me, he's an artist from Baltimore. But he said, "Dad, I don't want to do engineering. I want to go to art school." I'm like, "Uh-oh." So I said, "Well, come up with your list and we'll see what we can do." So first on his list was SCAD, but obviously, it's got a $55,000 price tag.
A tough one.
So I just was lucky at the time when that happened, and I said, "John, tell me a bit more about that program, Sure. And so the ADs were great guys at the time. I told them, I was like, "Seriously, are you interested in it?" I said, "Look, my son wants to go to school there. This financially makes a huge sense for me."
Oh, absolutely.
And so I said, "Well, let's do it." So he went to SCAD. We moved down as a family. This is his freshman year, and he saved me a ton of money. And then luckily the second one, who was more the serious soccer player, ended up playing for me.
Awesome.
He did industrial design and marine design, and that was one of the highlights for me, was being able to, I coached them as kids growing up, on the club team, but then to take them as an adult was special. And it's nice to see, we won the conference championships with SCAD, which they hadn't done prior to that, in his sophomore year.
Yeah.
And been in the final several times since then, but it's the final's a final. And you know how it's going to go. So that was nice for me personally. And just having, it's a tough gig for the son to have his dad as the coach, but I was particularly proud to see him, come through.
No, that's great. I mean, it's I used to watch him play when he played at Savannah Arts, and go watch some of the high school games, and those were always fun to watch with the competition here in Savannah. Between there's always 5 or 6 super competitive schools that get after it with each other, and just seeing them grow up in the club and around town and all that stuff. And then, with SCAD getting you, I mean, that had to be a coup for those guys. Like here's Mr. Tom Melville. I've had these accomplishments at Mercer, and then I'm gonna come to SCAD. And I think were you there 7 or 8 years, or was it longer than
that? Was it 9?
9.
Till the last election, so 3 years ago.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, came in 2008, and again, the program was well established. It wasn't like it was, it had come close a few times to, breaking through the regional final, that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But it is a difficult job in terms of it's an art school, and
pretty pricey one at that, right?
It's very, but again, if that's what you want and they provide the specialty that, if that's what you're interested in, and again, both my boys that's what they wanted.
Sure.
So, well, luckily, because I probably couldn't afford that if I wasn't coaching there.
Oh yeah, and you talk about the recruiting before and just how hard that is at a regular college. This just adds on a different level of complexity, I would imagine.
Well, again, the ADs at the time were, and the guys who hired me originally, were good guys. I really enjoyed, probably bar one, maybe my second, third favorite ADs, because they really, took me in and said, "Look," and I was older than them. And
Sure.
They're like, "Look, you know what you're doing. We'll just tell us how we can support you." And so, I knew the questions to ask, and recruiting was key. So they basically said, "We'll give you a budget to travel. We know you have to travel internationally because, again, you're not going to be able to compete against the big soccer schools."
Right.
it would be difficult to try and do that. So yeah. So at least they gave me the resources to do well, and we did. And again, was fortunate enough to be able to see some more countries.
Oh, absolutely.
Experiences. I actually took the team down to Argentina.
Oh, cool.
I'm a big believer in every time I've taken a college team abroad, they've won the conference championship that year.
Oh, really? That's wild.
You
spot so much better, don't you?
Well, you're very limited with games.
Sure.
With the old college system, you're talking 20 games in the fall. That's not enough. Other countries, it's just not enough. And they ask the college kids to do too much in a short period of time.
Sure.
So, hopefully we'll see that day where they're talking about and trying to get it spread out a little more. Sure. But to be able to take a team in the spring, for example, and take them down to we went to that particular team I took to Buenos Aires because I had several good players that had gone on to play professionally and stuff from there and good connections over the years. We actually played River Plate,
right,
and Racing. So two tough teams.
Yeah.
And
here's Brixie.
Hey there. What's he got? A dinosaur. So when you get a chance to play 6 games,
you
double your spring experience.
Oh, it's incredible, and the guys have a once in a lifetime opportunity to just become a family, right? It's.
It's a different environment. You're going over. Lenore Ryan I took to Ireland for a tour.
Oh wow!
Won that year.
Sure.
So it's just it's getting them to realize, look, out of their bubble. This is what you should be aspiring to, and just memories as well. Obviously, it's a different environment. I mean, you get the college kids that you got that dilemma between trying to control them and keep them on task,
sure,
as opposed to letting their hair down. And
right,
when you can be more of a European or a South American kind of team when you go abroad, they're in and they can go. We give them some free time and be much more relaxed about the whole social scene.
Sure.
I think that's part of the experience. Part of the getting them. I think that's one thing. That I like looking back on what's now that I'm getting old is meeting the alumni.
Oh yeah.
And you look back and you go, and the nicest ones are some of the ones that were your biggest pain in the butt. When you see them alumni and coach, I'm so sorry. I want to apologize for all those years you had to put up for me. And now the guy's a rocket scientist.
Those have to be some of the best stories of the guys, on the Zoom call, talking about when they went to a different country and did this and that. I mean, it really is a very important part of their experience. I think every college, no matter what level you're at, or how good or not so good you're at, you can custom fit that experience to go abroad, and you want to get beat and badly maybe in some games. So the guys say, look, we played River Plate. They killed us. It wasn't their first team; it was their second squad and some of the younger 19-year-old players. And we played in the right in the shadow of the World Cup stadium when the World Cup was played in Argentina. And then you turn around and play Racing. And that was a good game. I mean, it's 2-1. Sure.
And then you take them to see, then maybe go to see River Plate play Racing, or we actually play. They were guests in the game. River Plate against Tigre.
Yeah.
And they played, or they got to meet one of the young players. Again, I think it was only maybe 19. The Stars the next day in the museum when they got a private tour. I'm trying to think of his name. He went on to play at Spurs. He's this big, tall Argentinian striker that plays at Spurs. I'm going to forget his name right now. But anyway, you meet players like that at their age, they're going to go on and be the next superstar.
Oh, it's amazing, and I mean, it's just getting that opportunity as the college player, and then seeing the guy on TV here or there. I mean, it's the same as the ODP experience. The high school, seeing that great high school player, the club seeing the next. You get that opportunity to play against Atlanta United, then you see 5 years later, 3 of those kids are now somewhere in the MLS, or things like that. Just that's what it's what we're missing right now, right? so much pandemic and everything.
I mean, there's two. I brought two brothers to Brazil when I was at Mercer, and one was a goalkeeper and one was a young striker. And both typical Brazilians, are both technical, very good, that way.
Right.
But the highlight for them and for me as a coach, watch the look on their face when they actually got to play against Brazil at Mercer. When they're walking out, with their college kit on,
sure,
and they're about to play against Diego, Fabinho, and
it's like they're heroes.
Yeah, they, that was back when they got friendly with the staff. They came back in, I think it was 2001, right before 9/11 happened. It was August that year, and they were on their way to play in Trinidad and Tobago. And they called me up and said, "Hey, we're playing the USA on Sunday, I think it was." I said, "Well, if I send a bus down to get you, would you come and play us?" And sure. So, and then they still have them. They still bring them out when we get on, when we meet and stuff. And the Brazilian players give the Mercer kids their shirts with their name.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that became the shadow box.
So one of them got, a dig, it's just things like that. And those two brothers will never ever forget that.
No, that's amazing. So I didn't even realize this, but in retirement, you're coaching for Tormenta, I guess. Is that the stage of life you're in, Tom?
Yeah, I'm kind of, when I finished with SCAD, my wife, it's been a good move for my wife too, from a professional level. She came down here and I'd always been in Montessori private school.
Sure.
Which is, it's limited, but in terms of, salaries and stuff like that. When we came to Savannah, luckily, and there was a charter school at first, Montessori charter school, Kemco.
Sure.
She got the director's job for that, so that helped tremendously. And then that she meant she's in the public school system, and then 2 years there, and she became the assistant principal and then the principal at Charles Ellis.
Sure.
So when I finished with SCAD and when the youngest one graduated university, I said, well, we can move again, but there's no point, really. It's you're too well established in your career, and she had always followed me. So I said, look, don't worry about it. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
You've got your retirement. You're 2 years away. You'd have to stay in Georgia. There's only 3 D1 schools in Georgia anyway, and one of them I coached that before. One of them is Georgia State. I don't want to live in downtown Atlanta. And Georgia Southern, a good friend of mine, had just got the job at the time there.
Yeah.
Murph, So I said, look, we'll just sit tight. You just follow your career, and I'll find something to do. I still offer a little bit of recruiting service for international players that are referred to me.
Sure.
And then this came up, and the whole kicker. Obviously, I worked a little bit for Savannah United when I first started with back at the youth here.
Yeah.
And then to me, the trying to bring this pyramid together, when everything started to align, when the USAL clubs all started to agree, when everything started coming in to be more like the model that is in all the other countries in the world.
Sure.
And then when I found out that Darren had, secured the franchise, not just for Anna, but for the whole area.
Right. Amazing.
And I had kind of, in the past, I had told Savannah about, we should be looking at this, but the powers that be didn't want to go there, and sure enough. So that to me was the final, that was the deciding factor.
Yeah, and then to have the League One and the League Two, and have Ian on staff, one of your former players that you recruited. I mean, it's it's just part of the family now. It just seems like it's, the professional soccer, the friendships, the previous relationships all coming together at Tormenta. That's been one of the most fun things for me to see with everything that we have going on so far.
Well, I mean, again, this is my first involvement this past year, which seems time has flown. We're almost at the end of it, the first year. So it's, with John Cott, because John Cott originally moved down to Savannah to be my goalkeeping assistant.
Right.
And then that obviously didn't work out. So it worked well when he came back to me and said, well, what do you think? There are two clubs in town. I said, well, I think this is what you need to do. So with John being involved, and obviously good springboard for him, he enjoyed the experience.
Sure.
And then Darwin has been an ex-club player of mine.
Yep.
And then Ian taking the USL2 team last year, because I brought Ian to the States to play for Mercer.
Right.
Right before I left to go, he wasn't happy when I told him after his first year, I'm leaving. But it all worked out, and he's done really well. And the club has made a good move there, and I'm looking forward to working with them. And it's funny, it changes the whole dynamic. You used to be a player, and I used to be the boss, and that's not that way. And I think it's like you still got that respect is still there. It's really nice to see, and he's got a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, so he's gonna do well. But for me, it's it's in your blood. You kind of I thought I'd step away easier because I took that almost a year, and I'm like I said, okay, I'm going to go back in with the younger ones for a start, and I have enjoyed that process. But as that competitive edge is in there, and you want to do more.
It's like the itch you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I did Sweet Feet for 2 or 3 years, and I was only working with kids 3 to 8, and I was like just watching games, and then I talked to my wife to kind of get back in with Savannah Arts and coach their girls team for a year. Ended up coaching them, had the best time ever. Darren comes to me with this opportunity, and I'm like, no brainer. I'm back in as much as I can get back in here with 3 kids and an amazing wife and all that stuff. So
it's tough to get that balance in coaching. It really is, because I always told my players, I said, they're like, again, when they mature and they're getting ready to leave, and it's like, you're trying to kind of send them off, and I'm like, look, if you find a good one, make sure, because if you're getting involved with soccer, because it's your life, it takes over. It can take over.
Right. It's time consuming. There's never, it's like recruiting. You could recruit 50 hours and not get that player, or recruit 1 hour and get that player. It's like there's no stop start 9 to 5 time slot for it.
And then you're always second guessing. If it doesn't go well, did I not put enough work? I not put enough hours? I could have did, or you're always second guessing.
Soccer, yeah. How can I make a better program? If I create this curriculum, will it make that player better, or is it better if we, just play 5v5 twice a week? Like you did when you were growing up. I mean, it's like a whole, story.
But I think one of the things that I do want to mention is that the thing that appealed to me when you first approached me, because Jeremy approached me several times. And the first couple of times it just wasn't, I was taking a break, and then I just got my teeth in again with the younger ones, and I didn't, it was just started. So, but the key for me was when you came on board and sat down and you talked about the quality of life and what did I want out of it.
Sure.
And that was, to me, at this stage of my life, because it is too short. You gotta follow your dreams. If you're a young player, nobody's gonna give it to you. You gotta go get it. But at the same time, you have to find a balance with everything. And as even young players that have young kids, a professional player that has young kids, and you look at our young players who maybe they haven't started a family yet, but they're young, and they've got to try and find a way of figuring out, I may not be making a huge amount of money, I'm not there yet.
Sure.
What have I got to do to still have a life and promises?
Well, I appreciate you saying that a lot, Tom. I did my dissertation for my doctorate on that, with a work-life balance, and it's never really a balance, but it's I try to work on it every day, and sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I really get it wrong. So it's
well, I can't tell you. I mean, it was a big part of the decision for me,
right?
To say, look, this is the right direction, and it continued. That's borne fruit. I mean, we continue to talk about that, and it's interesting. Ian and John and I coming in saying, well, we would like him, even more involved. And so it's a question of trying to get it right, get the balance right. Because again, I'm trying to make a few sacrifices for, again, my wife's career, And I said, when all this is over, she can retire pretty much, any day now. That's how much she wants.
Right.
And I said, well, when you finish, then maybe we can go, and do you want to travel somewhere different? Before this, we had talked about China, believe it or not, about 24 months ago. There's a couple of people had, some contacts who said, hey, what about coming out to China? And I'm like, well, I don't know. But I mean, things like that. You could go somewhere that's, you just want to target, you want to live for a while. Caribbean. I know one of my old college coaching friends has got a job in the Caribbean, coaching the national team.
Wow.
It's lovely. So it's and also people have talked to me to come back to Ireland, because I did think about, we looked at going home and getting some property, because all our family are still there. And I've got relatives still involved in the game there.
Yeah.
That work for the IFA and stuff. And they're like, well, Tom, what have you ever thought about coming home, especially after this summer too, because
you were there for a week, but
I had 2 weeks there, and with the course and with all the soccer guys, and like, well, Tom. And they knew, when I made this move over to the States, I'd be over all the time.
Sure.
And my cousin's involved in youth soccer there.
Yeah.
And he would see our youth national teams coming into play, like there's a big tournament there called the Milk Cup.
Sure.
And US would be in there playing, and he'd call me and say, Tom, your under-17s are technically very good.
Right.
They're just, our kids can't touch them that way, but tactically naive.
Sure.
So you see that balancing act. But so yeah, we thought about that. But tell you what, it's hard to beat the weather here.
Oh man, it's we were talking before this how it's if we were in soccer season, it would rain twice a week, right? And now, I mean, every day it's like 78 degrees, partly sunny. It's just.
Yeah, you watch when we go back in the fall. It will have monsoons every weekend and get cancelled.
I won't doubt it, man. But I can't wait to get back at it. I mean, that's it's really hard for me. Just trying to. I'm kind of a planner. I like to plan things out, and we're in this state of flux where nobody knows when we're going to be getting started again. Nobody knows if we're getting started again. I mean, it's just such a tough.
I think too, though, but when we look back, I've got obviously my two, they're grown boys, Well, one of them's a teacher in South Carolina, and one of them, the younger one, went off to being a dive instructor in Costa Rica.
So they're both teachers.
So, well, he the younger one, I persuaded to come back because right before they knocked everything down, because I said, well, we'd rather get sick there or get sick here. Right. So it's tough for a young person right now. And what I'm trying to get across to him is you got to look at it as it's a negative for sure. I mean, everything. Right. You have to also look at it. What is it an opportunity for? And for him, actually, for you, it's an opportunity to basically, maybe get a few projects done that you didn't have time for. Maybe you want to retrain and do something, whatever it is you want to do. You think of it as, what can I use my time? So for the young players, that we have, I think two things need to be happening. Is they can still continue to do exactly what we've been doing with them.
Right.
That depends on them and their drive and how much they're willing to get out onto the, to the driveway or, to the field nearby or whatever, and continue to work on the stuff. And with present day video and YouTube,
oh my gosh,
so much stuff. I mean, it's amazing. But I think the other aspect is maybe that I'm telling some of the younger players is sit down and watch games. Go back now and watch old games, and don't watch it just as a fan. Watch it as from a player and coach perspective. Watch, if you're a center midfielder, watch the game start to finish from that player's perspective. If you're a winger, watch the player from that perspective. Don't just sit and watch it for entertainment value.
Had a great game today this morning when I woke up at 7 on NBC Sports. It was Tottenham-Chelsea, but in the Tottenham lineup was Brad Friedel in goal, who was my hero growing up, and Clint Dempsey up top. So it was like those two guys. I'm like, oh man, what an opportunity to watch these guys again. Like, just something you don't get You never think of it. You never think to go search that on YouTube or anything. But if it pops up, you're like, wow, this is great.
Or the greatest games, go back and look at the classics,
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you can find.
Oh, I mean, the Real Madrid team from the early 2000s. I mean, it's, the great Barcelona teams. And then, like, even, I've watched, you mentioned George Best earlier. He had a short little video that ESPN put together for him. It was along the lines of what they're doing with, like, Michael Jordan now, but over 10 episodes.
Right, yeah.
It was about a half hour, and, man, was that, or maybe an hour, and I'd never known much about the guy. I just knew him from videos, what a great player he was with the ball at his feet, but all the other stuff in his life and how he had a deal and that type of thing.
It happens to a lot of gifted people who are, they're very good in certain things and then they're terrible at other things.
Right.
All those things came to, for him. But I remember watching him play as a little kid.
Yeah.
I mean, my first memories of games are watching the home internationals when he would play for Northern Ireland.
Man, he was.
I never got to see him play in person for Manchester United, but I'm, part of growing up was they had the home internationals in England and Wales and Scotland and Ireland and Northern Ireland would play, round robin tournament kind of thing, and you were able to go to watch in person. But I remember when I was down in Brazil, met some really top-notch older players that, from back in the day, and people like Zico would turn around and say about George, when you hear where you're from, go, oh, George Best, yeah, and Pele called him the White Pele.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that was in the day, you can make these arguments about, who's best. Is it Maradona? Is it
some of the tackles?
Messi?
Some of the tackles he took were just like.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you look at the footage, that's back then you were allowed to break the guy's legs. There wasn't a foul.
Right.
Now, that player, you can imagine what that player could do in today's environment with the rules protecting the players and the surfaces. If you look, I remember again watching, the surfaces we played on back then were just mud.
Yeah. It was another documentary I watched where it was the year Maradona went to Napoli.
Yeah.
I think it might have been 86 to 87, and it started there, and it ran for like his 2 years or 3 years, however many years he was there. It ran for that, and it had his heights and his downfalls, and then the kicker was in the '90 World Cup when Argentina goes and plays Italy at Napoli Field in Argentina, and he scores like the game-winning PK in the shootout, and it's like everyone thought he should have missed that on purpose because he was playing in Italy, and it was just like, wow, it was so deep on so many different levels. But
he's another unbelievable, again, similar type of player in terms of the extremes.
Right.
Obviously, great footballer, but couldn't control some of the other things.
Unreal.
And and you see even happen, what's recently happened a lot because I mentioned Ronaldinho earlier on, a 16-year-old when I met him in Mercer.
Yeah.
And then look what's happened, with him now, getting arrested, going with a false passport. It's crazy.
It is.
It's hard to understand the world that those players live in.
Oh, absolutely. Where they're given everything. I mean, whatever.
The pressure.
Right.
Pressure's gotta be unbelievable.
Yeah.
Not just what they put on themselves, but also what's expected of them from fans, from the club,
family. I mean, everything.
You see. I mean, to what's the modern player nowadays? There's one player, for example, that I know a little bit about because my buddy's the agent over in England, James Milner, who plays for England.
Yeah.
So a young player like that, I mean, he was picked up by my buddy at 16 playing for Leeds.
Wow.
He takes care of himself. I mean, he doesn't drink. They're all unbelievable diets,
Oh, yeah, what a now, right?
Very smart with their money. It's just to see someone like that have such a long career,
right,
at that high level. It takes a lot of discipline, a lot of self-discipline.
Right. It's
when you go and you see. To me, I mean, that's hard to do.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate the time, Tom. And, this was a great, for me, I always love catching up with you, but I can't wait until everybody in Tormenta, the Tormenta family all around the States and the world gets to hear about you too. I mean, this is going to be a good one, I think.
Well, it's been fun to talk. It's a nice way to spend Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, man. Well, have fun.
When you don't have any soccer to watch.
Well, yeah.
But listen, all the best, and hopefully we'll get back soon, and in some form or fashion, and again, just use it as the experience to, the kids need to realize that, hey, anybody can take this away from you at any given moment. It might be an injury.
Yep.
That could end a career. But so you just gotta appreciate it, every day, and play like it was your last one.
Absolutely.
And
hopefully it's never anything like this again. I mean, it's
hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Well, thanks again, man, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, Tom?
You take care.
All right, see you, buddy.
Bye-bye.